Welcome to Catalyst Conversations, a podcast from the Foundation for Evangelism, where we talk about evangelism, discipleship, and sharing the good news of Jesus Christ with a hurting world. We hope that this podcast series can help you start a conversation in your faith community. This episode is part 3 in a series discussing how church can move beyond preservation to connection with their community in an invitational model of ministry. This episode focuses on getting to know your neighbors and making meaningful connections with those in the community, inviting them into the life and ministry of God's people.
We did a survey project. It's culminated in the book called Finding Faith Today about how people come to faith in the United States. And, the lessons are not rocket science here. One of the first things became very obvious is that people reach people. Right. All emphasis on programs and gimmicks, it's relations. Like you were talking about the relationality element. This is so essential. The second one is that people belong before they believe. That you have to create a context in which people can feel like they're there and not being pushed to be believing first, but that they can be part of a community in which they begin to understand what's going on and be able to even ask the kinds of questions that would lead to a faith commitment. And then the third one is that for the vast majority of people, finding faith is a journey, a long one sometimes. And I think we have this picture of conversion as instantaneous all the time, but only 1/3 of evangelicals say they came to faith instantaneously in that study, and only 20% of mainline and Catholics. So the vast majority, 2/3 to 80% of people who find faith in the United States come there gradually, which means, and usually it's 3 years or more. So we got to create context where we can come alongside people and they can come alongside us. And it may even mean belonging, that they're not members yet, but we might even give them responsibilities or ask them. So for example, I think your community could probably give your worship an uplift. What if a few people you ask there who visit the church, you ask them to come and help lead worship some Sunday, then you're going to get, the rubber will hit the road and the fruit cart may just topple over.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And that's where, and I have attempted some of those things and we'll continue, and I actually have some new people on worship teams that help with this. But that has been revelatory of some of the opinions of, well, let me say it this way. We do an annual children's Christmas musical. It involves both people within the congregation and people in our community. We survey the local elementary schools and we invite everybody who would like to learn how to sing and dance and be a part of a celebration of Christmas to come and be a part of that. We've had really good responses to that. When we finished the first time, and there were maybe 80 children on the platform, one of the dear saints of the church who truly loves God fits that first motto, Christ committed, I have no doubt. But she asked the question, how many of those children were our children? I was glad that our director responded, all of them. But it was the first break in the, or at least giving me evidence that there's a disconnect between the community connected people that we say we are and who we really are.
Yeah, that's an eye-opener.
And so Gary, I've got a question for you, is that out of our conversation today, what are takeaways for you about what's next?
Well, I think in some ways I'm on the right stream. What I'm looking for is continued measurement techniques. Are there ways to figure out, are these things effective? And if so, is there some measurability? Is there some evidence from text, or there are some actual practices or surveys that can be helpful to me? So I know that I continue to look for those. My goal ultimately is just simply to change the culture or change the outlook of these small churches so that they might actually reach the goal that all of them seem to have in common, and that is sustainability. But to change it from the language of sustainability to a language of mission. And how do we reshape that mission? And I appreciate Dr. Stone's kind of reference to redefining for these folks what that mission needs to include.
I know it'd be a real task, at least it seems to me that it would be, following up on what Dr. Stone mentioned about, so to speak, doing your own research, is that have a simple questionnaire and knock on 40 doors and ask them, say, have your people identify. I'm from the Yukon Church of the Nazarene, and we're here today to tell you that we're glad you're a part of our community. And I'm wondering, can you give me two things that you know? Or I don't know how to formulate questionnaires like this, but what do you know about my church, or whatever? Find the right questions there so that you can then use those a distillation of those responses as a mirror to hold up to the congregational leadership. We think that this is who we are, but this is, in fact, if you measure who we are by the perception of who we are, and perception is reality in terms of public relations and church relations, this is who we really are. I remember years ago, a long time ago, and we won't say how long, but I was a college student, and we did some weekend surveys kinds of things. So we went out knocking on doors, inviting people to Sunday school. And I remember that we were in Wichita, Kansas, and the pastor of Wichita First Church said, I don't care whether any of these people come to church tomorrow or not. This is Saturday morning. He said, if they come to church tomorrow, that's great. He said, but there are two things that absolutely must happen out of this. They need to know that we're here, number one, because most of these people within a mile radius of this church don't even know that we're on this corner. We need them to know that we're here. And then secondly, we need to know what they think about us. And what we're going to find out probably is they don't ever think about us. And that we're not who we think we are.
I want to suggest a tool for you, and it's a book been out for a while called Studying Congregations now. It's
online,
called Studying
online,
Congregations.
Yeah.
Well, the online resource is actually out of Boston University. We host it at the Center for Practical Theology. It's studyingcongregations.org. But the handbook Nancy Ammerman and others wrote, called Studying Congregations, a new handbook, gives you the tools to do a lot of these kinds of studies through 5 different frames. And it can be very helpful to walk through those with a congregation. One is kind of understanding a congregation's ecology. So it's social environment, its neighborhood and region, helps it understand that. Theology, the culture of the congregation is the third one. And fourth one is resources, and the fifth one is process, the congregation's way of doing things. So those, I highly recommend that resource or the website that has those same frames and tools, surveys already pre-made that can be very helpful in studying congregations.
For our viewers, give again the exact information on that so that they can find that themselves, to look for it somewhere.
Yeah, the website is called studyingcongregations.org. And the book is called Studying Congregations, a new handbook. Nancy Ammerman is primary author of that.
Yeah, that's Ammerman.
Right. Yeah. Great resource for helping congregations do the kinds of studies that would lead. You'd have to give it the twist or interest that you have in terms of gaining a missional mindset about what the church is, but it can give you the tools for studying.
Gary, any final observations from your side before we close out?
I'd like to close with an anecdotal story. When I first came to this church, literally before the first interview with the church board, in that church board meeting, I asked that question. I see that you're community connected. How are you community connected? And there was no answer. I responded to that absence of an answer by saying, well, my wife and I had been driving around the neighborhood before we came to this meeting. And along with just simply meeting some people and asking something about the community, I ran across a woman who was pushing a baby carriage with a toddler walking beside. I stopped and said, excuse me, my wife and I are thinking about moving to this city. Do you know of a good church? She immediately pointed across the highway, which is Route 66, to the location of this church, Yukon First Church of Nazareth. And she said, well, that really big church over there is probably a really good church. I countered with, what do you mean a big church? Well, the parking lot is filled on Sunday morning. And then she went on to say, but I don't think they need any more people. And when I asked why, she said, they've never been to my door to invite me. I responded to the board saying, now, this is not a scientific survey. It was only one chance meeting, but it said something important, that the community is not aware of who we are. And those who are aware think that they understand who we are. And somewhere in the process, we need to discover who we are and then change that narrative.
Wow.
That's a really helpful antidote. It's an